with Zara. We wanted to talk about a topic that many people have brought up to us on our different channels that we're on. And so we wanted to cover, how to achieve work-life balance as a mompreneur using the law of attraction. So Zara, awesome to have you here today and for us to be presenting this together.
Happy to be here. Oh, this is such a big topic, and I've experienced this myself, and I think that understanding law of attraction and using strategies to create a work-life balance is a wonderful thing to do.
I
Okay,
agree.
where do you want to start, Teresa?
Well, for me, I think, how do you deal with the guilt of being a mom, having a family, but also being called or having that desire to have your own business or having your own business?
Mm-hmm.
You're inspired by it, but you're being pulled away.
I think that for a lot of women, the problem is that the business is like a child that needs your care and attention. And then you have children who also need care and attention. We do the guilt part, we do it to ourselves.
Yes.
And one of the reasons that we feel that guilt is because we've learned from the society that we live in that mothers are more responsible for children and have to be there, and children have to be looked after, and you just carry that weight of responsibility on your shoulders, right? And so it almost feels like the business is competing with the children, and I find that you put yourself way down on the list of priorities, right? So you
Right, that's
ignore.
very common.
It's very common. It's part of the guilt is that I need to do this for my business, I need to do this for my children, and this is what I need to do for myself, but I'll put it off because I just don't have time for it.
And then you still have a relationship through all of this as well, and family and
Exactly, and there's other things going on in your life, right?
yes.
You still need to put snow tires on and get the car serviced and deal with other things, and events happen, birthdays, social life, all of that is there as well. And so where this guilt comes from is a feeling of time shortageness, a feeling that there isn't enough time for everything that I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that women make it worse by telling themselves, I don't have enough time. I don't have enough time. They feel so overwhelmed with everything that they think they have to do that needs to get done. And they feel that there isn't enough time in the day for them to be able to get to everything that needs to be done. And from a law of attraction point of view, that actually makes things a lot worse. Because if you tell yourself you don't have enough of something, then that thought is a magnet that brings you that manifestation. So if you think I don't have enough time, the universe says your wish is my command. You think there isn't enough time, therefore I must give you not enough time.
Right.
Okay? And that is where that feeling of pressure and stress and feeling overwhelmed comes from. And that's where the guilt comes from as well, because you feel guilty if you take your attention away from your business, because then you feel, oh, I'm not growing my business the way I could grow it if I had all the time in the world. And if you take attention away from your children, you feel as if you're being a bad mom, and your children are going to either grow up and not love you, or they're going to grow up and not be good human beings or have some shortcoming, and you hold yourself responsible for the shortcomings of your children.
Right.
And I remember, Teresa, way back when my daughter was very little, and I used to think that way. And then I had the opportunity to look at women who were stay-at-home moms whose children were either not doing as well at school or had all sorts of, issues, or were not well behaved, or whatever it was that I observed about them at that time. And I did not know law of attraction at that time, but I saw these women and I told myself, well, what's the difference? They are home all the time and they're still not giving their children attention.
Right. So then what was it, right?
So what was it is that feeling, because you see what a child wants, and this is what I want to say to all mompreneurs out there. What a child wants and needs is to feel loved. We love our children, but do our children feel loved? Right?
It's a very good point, because it's love and safety, right? And they want to feel they have that.
Well, but if you break it down and you break it down from the point of view of law of attraction, then you have to understand that your children are safe if you think they're safe, and if you teach them that they are safe. If you teach them to be unsafe, and an example I'll give to all mompreneurs out there, because we mompreneurs, who are we? We are in the business of sales, right? But if you were taught as a child not to talk to strangers, to be scared of strangers, how are you going to be good at sales? Because you're making sales, or you want to make sales to strangers all the time.
Yeah.
But then we end up teaching the same thing to our children, presumably to keep them safe. But we make them insecure because now our children are not trusting of the environment that they live in. And if you have that attitude, then that's what you're telling the universe. Universe, I live in a world that's not safe, and my children live in a universe that is not safe. And the universe says, source says in response, oh, you live in a world that's not safe. Let's give you a world that's not safe. So you have to understand, if you believe in the law of attraction, you have to understand that thoughts have power. And whatever it is that you think is reality is what you're perpetuating in the future. So if you think that your being there is going to keep your children safe, that's wrong. Because if you thought your children were safe, then it would not matter where you were, your children would be safe. Does that make sense?
It does. And same with love. So they want to know they're loved. So,
yes.
Showing them that opportunity that they are loved.
Yes. And children have a psychic connection with their parents when they're that little. That psychic connection goes away when they become independent in their emotions and thinking. And that happens kind of when they're getting into puberty. But before that, children have a psychic connection which gradually goes away. And it does not have to, but it does, because nobody's paying attention to it. So that's why it goes away. And that's a whole other webinar that we can do, or a whole other training that we can do. But for the purposes of this training, understand that your children are psychic, and they will pick up. If you send the vibration of love towards your children, they have these tiny antennas that will pick up that vibration and respond to it, which will make them be responsible the way you want them to be responsible, which will make them do things that are good and right, and they will be able to be more confident and look after themselves if you think that they will. They just have to feel loved. And that means you've got to send them the vibration of love as opposed to the vibration of worry. Imagine if you send your child the vibration of worry all the time. I'm worried about you, I'm worried about you, I'm worried about you. Now that child is picking up, the child doesn't know the thought. All the child is picking up is the vibration. They don't know the thought that you're thinking. They're picking up on the vibration that you're thinking, and they're thinking something's wrong, something's wrong, something's wrong, something's wrong. And when a child thinks something's wrong, something's wrong, something's wrong, what do you think they're attracting?
Worry, anxiety.
Something's wrong, so something wrong will happen.
Yes.
Because
so this is interesting, because just as you mentioned there is rather, and part of what the kid will pick up, or your children will pick up, is this feeling of guilt, being pulled in different directions.
Well,
and that will
that's
make them
right. Exactly.
uneasy too.
That's right. And that's how children start feeling that they're the cause of mummy's worry.
Yeah.
Right? And that's not a good, do you want to do that to your children? Of course
No.
not. Now, Teresa, I want to tell you a little story, and maybe you might have heard about this story from me before, but it was a huge aha moment for me. And I'm going to share it with all the mompreneurs out there because I think that it's going to help them make sense of something that's been contorted and distorted by our society. And the story goes, my daughter went out with her friend, her best friend, and the best friend's mother, who was a dear friend of mine and still is, to a concert. And they told me that a concert was about 2 hours away from where we lived, and they told me that they would be home around 11 p.m. My parents were visiting with me at that point in time. They were staying with me. And so my father knew, both my parents knew that my daughter's supposed to come home at 11. So at 11 o'clock, or before, I think quarter to 11, my father comes to me and says, is Kinza home? And I said, no, it's not 11 just now. And he said, okay, have you spoken to her? I said, no, I'm comfortable. She's with, a really good friend. They'll be back. Doesn't matter. Don't worry about it. Go to sleep. Well, guess what? My father did not go to sleep. 11 o'clock came. He didn't come down. 11:15, he comes down. And he's like, where's Kinza? And I'm like, they're probably, it's a lot of traffic coming out of a concert, and we live 2 hours away. And if there's traffic anywhere, it's okay. They'll be a little late. And so he says to me, call her. Well, my daughter didn't have a cell phone, but my friend did. And so I said, okay, I'll try calling them. So he stood there and I called, and of course nobody picked up. And I said to him, it's probably so noisy they can't even hear the sound of the phone ringing. Don't worry about it. They will be home soon. So he goes back up, and then half an hour later, he comes back down. And he's like, this time he's really mad at me. And he's like, what sort of a mother are you? You're not even worried that your daughter is not home. It's almost midnight. And it made me realize something. It made me realize that he was equating the amount of worry with the amount of love.
Right.
And that's what I want you all to hear. Mompreneurs, the amount of worry that you expend on behalf of your business or your child is not equal to the amount that you care for them, or should not be.
Yes.
Because what you're doing is, what happens as a result of this attitude is, every time you worry, you think you're actually loving. But you're not, because worry is a very different vibration from love. Love is a feeling of joy. When someone picks up your feeling of love towards them, it makes them happy. But when someone picks up your feeling of worry about them, it makes them unhappy. They are opposites of each other. So if you love someone, please don't send them your worry, because that actually is detrimental to you as well as to them.
Yeah, makes sense for sure.
Right?